And what is that question? Do we have a theological obligation to treat corpse with a dignity, that body with a dignity? Is cremation a legitimate alternative to burial? Right? Which is very important question. Should we have, how should we treat corpse? Should we treat corpse with a dignity? Right? It is interesting to note that in the Old Testament, a corpse was still referenced as nephesh. Right? Dead body was still referred as nephesh. Like I have verses here. Though life had departed, the body was once material part of a human being and had lingering dignity. Yes, in the Old Testament, they looked at body with a dignity. Therefore, lingering dignity demanded the retention of the body intact by burial. That is unclear. Now, why did they bury it? Is it they wanted to have the body intact as it is? We don't know. Is it because of the dignity that they buried? That may be a question. Cremation can also be solemn and dignified. I don't think that way. We don't have to take. So, setting aside instance of people consumed alive by fire, there are 5 instances of deliberate cremation after death in the Bible. Bible talks about cremation after death, burning of the corpse. Right? What are the 5 examples? Number 1, Joshua 7. You have post-mortem cremation of Achan's family as a part of God's judgment for his sin. Yeah, Achan's family was judged because of their sin. So that is one example. 2 Chronicles 34 verse 5 records favorably Josiah's cremation of false priests who had desecrated temple. Let's look at 2 Chronicles now. If you have Bibles, please look at 2 Chronicles. 2 Chronicles 34 verse 5. 34 verse 5. It says, then he burned the bones of the priest on their altars, purged Judah and Jerusalem. Right. So you see, Josiah burned the bones of the priests. Yes. Third, in Amos 2:1, God condemns Moab's burning of the bones of Edom's king. Though the crime was probably not the desecration of the body associated with the cremation, but the fraternal vindictiveness that led to cremation. So God condemns Moab's burning. That's a third example of burning in the scripture. Fourth, Amos describes the cremation of 10 soldiers by an undertaker, right? That is undertaker means one who burns, but gives neither positive nor negative commentary on the practice. Amos also talks about burning. Fifth, burning of the bodies of Saul and his sons was probably to preserve his dignity and passes without censure. Maybe in 1 Samuel you have Saul and his sons' bodies were burned. So, does Bible describe cremation? Yes. Bible describes cremation, no doubt. to this mixed record, we might add the suggestion that cremation as a pagan practice should be eschewed. No, even Bible cremation was a practice. We would also be forced to concede, however, that burial rites are historically laced with pagan notions as well. Yes, burial also has a lot of pagan connections, especially Chinese and Egyptians. Yeah, they always buried their dead bodies. Especially look at Egyptians. They just embalm the bodies because they honor it so much that they wanted to see the body right there. Admittedly, the earliest and most prominent practice in Scripture is that of burial. That is, Abraham and the rest of the patriarchs were buried, right? In fact, the location of the burial was such extreme importance to them that Joseph requested exhumation and reburial, right? We know that patriarchs buried. However, it is difficult to reduce from this that burial is really any less pagan. Pagan buried. Pagans buried. So saying that burial is a biblical pattern, no, pagans always did that. And saying that cremation is unbiblical, no, you see the examples in the Bible of cremation. Now, the next idea that we need to ponder here is belief in resurrection and association with the Christ is symbolically reflected in burial, right? We buried usually because of Christ and his resurrection. Though obviously this is more symbolic than necessary. Symbolic than necessary. It's not a necessary thing. Many Christian bodies have, in fact, been burned, consumed, or have decomposed fully without threat to their future resurrection. Right? Remember, in Revelation, fire gives back those who were consumed. The sea gives back those who are consumed by sea. So there are many Christians whose bodies were burned and nobody knows what happened. There are many cremated that way. So I am saying, to conclude, a strong case can be made for treating bodies with the dignity. Right? Yes, you need to treat the bodies with the dignity out of respect what they once were. Right? Vehicles for expression of human soul. Right? Bodies were vehicles to express human soul through our brain, via our brain. And these bodies were reflected in God's image. Somewhat weaker case can be made historically, theologically, and psychologically that dignity, this is a weaker, I'm saying, weaker case can be made psychologically that dignity of personhood and hope of resurrection is best manifested by burial, but still it is a weaker case. Burial can reflect, the resurrection. In long run, it is difficult, however, to say burial is biblically preserved. So, I don't think it is naturally has to happen. Burial is the only way to do no cremation. No. So I will be inclined to say, if someone really wants to say, I wanted to be cremated, you should allow that to happen. You can do that properly, right? Can a believer be cremated? Yes, I would say. Nothing wrong. Theologically, there is nothing wrong to cremate a body. But I would say, if you want, maybe a hope of resurrection, things like that can be best understood in a burial sense. So, if you ask me, what do I prefer? I always prefer burial, but I know Some people don't prefer burial at all. Some Christians. So it is up to them. All right.
After cremation, they go back to take the ashes in the Hindus.
I mean, that's Hindu practice. We don't, we just bury the ashes and deposit the mud. There's nothing wrong. Many Christians in the beginning were cremated, like they were just burned completely into ashes. Many Christians were like,
Joseph's bones were taken back, no?
yeah, well, that's what I argued here in the beginning. Yes.
Yeah, I was listening.
If you look at, there are 5 instances in the Bible that they burned the bodies. 5 instances. And clearly, book of Revelation says, whether you're buried or buried in the land or buried in the sea or consumed by fire, still there will be a resurrection. No doubt. God can raise. So there's no biblical necessity, but I would say preference would be, and think about during COVID, you know what happened? Many Christians were cremated. Many Christians were cremated in the beginning. They were not allowing to bury any dead. They were just burning it. There are many what happened. I know one of my friend's daughter, like maybe 21 or 20, I don't know, somewhere in the 20s, died, and they did not. They just showed the body and they just buried, just cremated. There are many Christians who are cremated. So I don't think it is wrong to do that. It's not going to affect their soul because soul is not there. It's already departed. It's simply the vehicle that carried that soul is now left. All right. So that is what my discussion on the cremation or burial. All right. What I will do, I will stop it for today and we'll come back tomorrow for the rest of the discussion.